Jananandana Bhaja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Bihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So can everyone hear? Oh, Hare Krishna. Okay, it's the video. Nagari Prabhu, I don't see the orange light.
Can you see a button on the top of the keyboard that has like a camera icon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, press that.
Okay, now it's orange.
Okay, press it again.
Now it's on.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm
This
just seeing some symbol here on my end. Let me change the camera. There.
Yeah, there we
Okay.
go.
Okay, so I just went to the video button and I adjusted the setting
Okay.
for the
All right. Yeah, which camera actually to use? Okay,
yeah. Okay.
great. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Part 1, The Science of God. Jai, good morning. And we are Canto 7, Chapter 2, texts 7 to 8 today. That's what we were given. Read here. Tasya tyakta svabhavasya Grinirmaya Vanaukasa Bhajantam Bhajamanasya Balasyevastiratmana Machchula Binagrivasya Bhurina Rudirena Vai Ashrik Priyang Tarpayasye Bhartaram me gatavyata. Would anybody else like to chant?
Tasyata Swabhavasya Grinir Maya Panau Kashaha Bhajantam Bhajamanasya Balas Yevastirat Manaha Machura Bina Grivasya Borina Rudhirena Vai Asrik Priyam Tarpaishye Brataram Me Gata Vyataha.
Tasya tyaktya swabhavasya grinirmaya vanokasaha bhajantam bhajamanasya balasyeva stiratmanaha machchula bhinna grivasya Bhurinar Rudirena vai Asrik Priyam Tapayishe Brataram Me Gata Vyataha.
Lord, Asya, of him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jagta Svabhavasya, who has given up his natural position of being equal to everyone. Yene, most abominable, Maya, under the influence of the illusory energy, Vana Opasa, behaving exactly like an animal in the jungle, Vajantam, unto the devotee engaged in devotional service, Jamanasya, being worshipped, Balasya, a child, Iva, like Astira Atmana, who is always restless and changing, Mat, my, Shula, by the trident, Na, separated, Devasya, whose neck, Bhurena, profuse, Rudhirena, by blood, by indeed, Astik Priyam, who was fond of blood, Tarpayishye, I shall please, Brartaram, brother, me, my, Gatavyata, becoming peaceful myself. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has given up his natural tendency of equality toward the demons and demigods. Although he is the Supreme Person now, influenced by Maya, he has assumed the form of a boar to please his devotees, the demigods, just as a restless child leans towards someone. I shall therefore sever Lord Vishnu's head from his trunk by my trident, and with the profuse blood from his body I shall please my brother Hiranyaksha, who was so fond of sucking blood. Thus shall I too be peaceful. Report. The defect of the demoniac mentality is expressed in this verse very clearly. Hiranyakashipu thought Vishnu also becomes partial, like a child whose mind is not steady or resolute. The Lord can change his mind at any time, Hiranyakashipu thought, and therefore his words and activities are like those of children. Actually, because the demons are ordinary human beings, their minds change, and being materially conditioned, they think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is conditioned also. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:11, Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanum ashritam. Fools deride me when I descend in a human form. Demons always think that Vishnu can be killed. Therefore, being absorbed in thoughts of Vishnu's form to kill him, at least they have the opportunity to think of Vishnu unfavorably. Although they are not devotees, the thinking of Vishnu is effective, and thus they generally attain Sayuja Mukti. Because the demons consider the Supreme Lord an ordinary living being, they think that they can kill Lord Vishnu as one might kill an ordinary person. Another fact disclosed herein is that demons are very much fond of sucking blood. Indeed, all of them are meat eaters and bloodsuckers. Hiranyakashipu accused the Supreme Lord of having a restless mind like that of a small child who can be induced to anything if simply offered some cakes and ladus. Indirectly, this indicates the true position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who says in Bhagavad Gita 9:26, Patram pushpam phalam toyam tume bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyoparitam asnami prayatatmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf of flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. The Lord accepts the offerings of devotees because of their transcendental love. Because they are in love with the Supreme Lord, they do not eat anything without offering it first to the Lord. The Lord does not hanker for a small leaf or flower. He has enough to eat. Indeed, he is feeding all living entities. Nonetheless, because he is very merciful and is Bhakta Vatsala, very favorable to the devotees, he certainly eats whatever they offer him with love and devotion. This quality should not be misjudged to be childish. The highest quality of the Supreme Lord is that he is Bhakta Vatsala. In other words, he is always extremely pleased with his devotees. As for the word Maya, when used in reference to the dealings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, this word means affection. The actions of the Lord to favor his devotees are not disqualifications, but signs of his natural affection. As for Rudira, or the blood of Lord Vishnu, since there is no possibility of severing Lord Vishnu's head from his body, there is no question of blood. But the garland that decorates Vishnu's body is as red as blood. When the demons achieve Sayuja Mukti and leave behind their sinful activities, they are blessed by Vishnu's garland, which is red like blood. After attaining Sayuja Mukti, the demons are sometimes promoted to the Vaikuntha world, where they receive the reward of the Lord's garland prasad. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rup Bhagadamayam Dati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today I'm speaking on behalf of Shastrakrit Prabhu. It was his day, but he's not able to make it. So, and then tomorrow he'll be speaking. So this chapter, Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons, this is getting very exciting. We're entering into these amazing pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. And there's a lot in the purport here. Prabhupada answered a lot of questions, possible questions that could come up in regards to the statements by Hiranyakashipu. And a lot of my questions were answered here in this purport. And the previous chapters, we got a lot of information about understanding the truth behind the misconception of, the misconception of the Lord's partiality. So, Lord is, as we've heard, not partial in the sense that he fulfills the desires of all the living entities. We hear in Upanishad. That's also stated there, how the Lord is complete in himself, and all parts and parcels of him are also complete wholes in themselves. Everything that comes from him. So the Lord is the source of all spiritual and material things. He is the source of everything, so both material and spiritual. Which is why to the Lord, it's all his energy. For the conditioned soul, we see the differences between the material and the spiritual. And in this universe, we have dualities of divine and demoniac natures. Those natures are described nicely in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, where he goes into the details of each of those characteristics and qualities. And so Hiranyakashipu, I'm sure all of us on here are familiar with the pastime of the esoteric background behind Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha as devotees from the spiritual world coming down to fight with the Lord. And I was thinking how there's many activities that go on in this material world that are quite disturbing. And for me, it's a very hard pill to swallow, the mentality of the demons. And here Prabhupada is very bluntly making the point that demons always think that Lord Vishnu can be killed, because in my head, I keep hearing these arguments of Hiranyakashipu, and he'll go on, as we see in the summary of the chapter, he'll go on to start describing to his nephews various philosophical points about the nature of the soul and the self, and about heroes and all of that jazz. And it's interesting to see that from the perspective philosophically, there's a lot of points that were reasonably made by Hiranyakashipu, although considering his conclusion, it's very faulty. And here Prabhupada is pointing out a lot of the defects of the demoniac mentality. And so one of those defects is that the demons think that Lord Vishnu is partial. And I was just thinking how the demons have their desires fulfilled and the demigods are having their desires fulfilled. So who's partial? And then Prabhupada's making it very clear that because the demons are conditioned, so they're also thinking that Lord Vishnu is a conditioned soul. And as devotees, we clearly see the difference. By the grace of the Lord, we can understand that there's a huge difference between the qualities and the personality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that of the demoniac conditioned soul. So I was thinking that as devotees that are still in the conditioned state of material existence, striving to be devotees, there are subtle tendencies towards demoniac propensities. And as aspiring devotees, not all of you are on that platform, but at least for myself, coming from, generally speaking, demoniac tendencies, it's very clear to see that there is an all-merciful aspect to the Supreme Lord, that he is genuinely fulfilling all the desires of the living entities, and to even have a desire to come out of that demoniac propensity is only by the grace of a devotee, a pure devotee. So, continuing in the purport, that Prabhupada is describing that very clearly, how Krishna says that the fools, they're considered foolish, that they deride Krishna when he appears and he descends in a human form. And that's unfortunate that the demoniac class can, genuinely feel and think that the Supreme Lord is somehow limited to that. And Prabhupada, being a very broad-minded Paramahamsa, he is elaborating in his purport how all these things that Hiranyakashipu is saying, how they're validated in a Krishna conscious way, which is very interesting because at least the demoniac tendency is to retaliate when somebody gives some insult or some words. Generally, there's this propensity to want to fight back and prove how the other person is wrong and like that. So Prabhupada is pointing out the defects of demonic mentality, but he's also at the same time taking the words spoken by Hiranyakashipu and establishing them in a transcendental way in relation to the Lord. So he's elaborating also in this second part of the purport how it's actually a very fortunate thing for the demoniac mentality or the demons, that even though they're unfavorably absorbed in thoughts of Vishnu, still they have the opportunity to think of Vishnu. So that's a really broad-minded perspective of understanding the place in which demons can even think of Vishnu. They can even be absorbed in Vishnu. That's how kind he is. And Prabhupada goes on to say, not only are they able to think of Vishnu, but that their thinking of Vishnu is effective, which usually we would think, in a material sense, if the formula isn't according to the rules and regulations, then the results is, void, like in a science lab, put all the right ingredients and then get the proper outcome. But Krishna has his ways. The Lord has his ways of engaging all living entities, somehow or other, to receive some benefit. And so here, although the demons are thinking of the Lord unfavorably, their thinking is still effective. And then the conclusion that the acharyas give is that they generally achieve Sayuja Mukti, if they're so inclined in such an absorbed way. And Sayuja Mukti is the merging into the body of the Lord, of course, as a eternal living entity in the mood of our natural dharmic propensity, which is to serve. Sayuja Mukti doesn't provide full, complete realization of service attitude. And so therefore, it's like a way in which one can become purified before even coming to the platform of servitude or neutrality, which is somewhat favorable. According to the acharyas, they say it's the neutral stage is still in the platform of bhakti because it's favorable. And I was reading from Brahma Samhita. I'd like to share it with you all, which further elaborates on these points. To continue before we get to that about Sayuja Mukti, because that stood out to me a lot. I really had a lot of questions about Sayuja Mukti. So here we're continuing how Prabhupada is going on to the point about sucking blood. And, when I generally hear that, at least for, faint-hearted persons like myself, it's very disgusting and disturbing and scary. So point blank, the demons, they eat meat and they like sucking blood. And coming from a family that, myself personally, that eats meat, it's quite shocking to think about it in those terms. And of course, there's the extreme levels of those demons that really do, in a gross way, like when you see these animal channels. I don't watch them so much, but a few times I had seen before on I don't know even what the channel's called, but where they show how the lions and the tigers and those that are gifted with these strong teeth and nails, how they really enjoy the going into the carcass and blood, and it's just a whole mood that they have. So yeah, it's not so relatable for myself, but it's real and it's true. That's the closest thing I can wrap my brain around, accepting the naturalness of an entity being a meat-eating bloodsucker. Um, and it's amazing how, even in this relation, later Prabhupada will clarify and elaborate on that tendency of attraction to blood and how it's purified within the demoniac mentality after achieving Sayuja Mukti, if they get that promotion to Vaikuntha afterwards. Which here it's obviously possible. Prabhupada is showing that it is possible to be promoted to Vaikuntha, even though one is in Sayuja. And the second part of the purport, the third part that's going on, Prabhupada is addressing Prabhupada is addressing the aspect of Hiranyakashipu accusing the Lord to be childish in the sense of having a restless mind. And of course, children are always restless. And so Prabhupada, he's giving two turns on this aspect of this child-like comparison. So Prabhupada is saying the aspect or the true position of the Lord is that he simply asks his devotees for love. And he states in Gita that just by offering the simple offering, as long as it's with love, Krishna is very pleased. And this is, he says, you can offer a little leaf, a flower, fruit, water. And when it's done with that transcendental love, the Lord is, he accepts it. He accepts those offerings. And is making it very clear that not only is the Lord reciprocating with the love of the devotees in their offering, the devotees also reciprocate with the Lord that they only want to take those offerings which are accepted by the Lord. They only want to eat those things that the Lord has accepted in love. And out of love, the devotees only want that. So from a practical standpoint, for someone who's trying to give up eating meat and all of those things, prasadam is such an easy way to make that transition because it's the Lord's prasadam, and that mercy is greater than any amount of sinful karmic reaction. So the other point for advanced souls, they have no desire or tastes to enjoy anything of this world, and so naturally their preference would be the loving offerings of the Lord and to honor only those things. And then Prabhupada is elaborating about the nature of the Lord in relation to his devotees as Bhaktavatsal. And usually when I would hear Bhaktavatsal, I think like the friend of the devotees, that the one who is very dear to the devotees, and the devotees are very dear to the Lord. Here Prabhupada is saying that Bhaktavatsal, another way of saying Bhaktavatsal, means that he is always extremely pleased with his devotees, which is very sweet. And of course, the clarification of Maya, I was thinking in my head, okay, how is Prabhupada going to, even before I came to the point, I was just thinking in my head, how is Prabhupada going to come to the explanation? What is he going to give? What are his realizations on this Maya? Hiranyakashipu saying Maya, and I was thinking maybe Mahamaya, Yoga Maya in that respect, how Yoga Maya is the internal and is giving that interaction between the Lord and his devotees for the purpose of love, not like Mahamaya, which is forgetfulness. And here Prabhupada is saying Maya in this context is referencing affection. Here Prabhupada is really elaborating in his purport on the affection of the Lord, his being pleased and very affectionate towards his devotees. And he's stamping at the very end that this favor of his towards the action of the Lord to favor his devotees is not a disqualification, but it's a natural affection. And then towards the end, this part of the blood and trying to sever the Lord's head off the body. Here, Prabhupada's making it very clear there's no question of blood, and we also see in Sri Upanishad where it describes the nature of the spirit as, the absolute truth, not having any veins, like that. There's no veins, it's not a material body, not materially made up of things that are bound to, like blood and pus and bile and all of that stuff. What to speak of trying to dismantle a transcendental body that has no beginning or end. So there's no question of blood. And then Prabhupada makes a very beautiful transition of the garland being red like the blood, and how this garland gives blessings to those demons that achieve Sayuja Mukti. One becomes completely purified when they achieve Sayuja Mukti as a demon, and Prabhupada is saying they're blessed by the Lord's garland. And as we know, all the articles, whether it be the earrings, the garland, the dress, they're all personalities in the spiritual world. So this particular personality of the Lord's garland is giving that mercy and by the Lord's desire. And here Prabhupada is saying, even after attaining it, if they are promoted, then that's where they actually will receive the Mahaprasad, the Prasadam garland. They will actually be given that garland to fulfill that desire for. They're so attached to blood. So it's quite interesting how the Lord works in many ways. So I wanted to share what I was reading. There were a few points. I was thinking, where else is this Sayuja Mukti spoke about? One part that I thought was very nice. Let me go back to it here. I'm just looking through the pocket Veda. So this is Brahma Samhita. It's the 5th chapter, text 55. I'll read the Sanskrit part and then the purport. So this is, of course, Prabhupada's giving the beginning parts, which were written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then Prabhupada continues on to elaborate from his work. Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrishim Tanum Apurete. Govindamari Purusham Lamaham Jami. So here in this prayer by Lord Brahma, he's talking, one of the words he says in the translation is Sahaja Pranaya, which is natural friendly love. There's a lot of clarification here that I got as far as the feelings towards the Lord, and then what that culminates in, and then the different relations one can have with the Lord. So I'll read the translation. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation. And this is the purport. Devotion is of two kinds, via one, of the nature of deference to regulation, and two, constituted of natural feeling. So there's two here, two kinds of devotion. Bhakti is roused by following with a tinge of faith in the rule of the Shastras and instruction of the preceptors. Such bhakti is of the nature of loyalty to the scriptural regulations. It continues to be operative as long as the corresponding natural feeling is not roused. If a person loves Krishna out of natural tendency, there is the principle of raga, which is no other than a strong desire to serve, which turns into bhava, or substantive feeling. When the substantive feeling is aroused, the devotee becomes an object of mercy of Krishna. It takes much time to attain this stage. Devotion, which is of the nature of feeling, is superior to that connected with scriptural regulation, soon attains to the realized state and is attractive to Krishna. Its various aspects are described in this sloka. Shanta Bhav, full of reverence to superior. Vasya Bhav, full of service for carrying out the commands of the object of worship. Sakya Bhav, or natural friendly love. Vatsalya Bhav, or parental affection. And Madhurya Bhav, or amorous love, are all included in the category of devotion of the nature of its instinctive attachment. But anger, fear, and delusion, though they are of the nature of instinctive impulse, are not devotion in the strict sense of the term, because they are not friendly, but hostile to the object. Anger is found in asuras like Shishupala, fear in Kamsa, and delusion in the Panditas of the pantheistic school. They have the feelings of anger, fear, and instinctive impulse marked by complete self-forgetful identification with the non-differentiated Brahman. But as there is no friendly feeling towards the object of devotion, there is no bhakti. Again, among the feelings of Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhura, Shanta, though indifferent and dormant in raga, is still reckoned as bhakti on account of its being a little friendly. There is an immense volume of raga in the other four varieties of emotion. By the promise of Gita, Yeyata mam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham. That's Bhagavad Gita 4:11. I serve one according to his submission. Those who allow themselves to be actuated by the sentiments of fear, anger, and delusion attain to Sayuja Mukti, merging in the Absolute. The Shantas obtain bodily forms with aptitude for addiction to Brahman and Paramatma. The Dasya and Sakya classes of worshippers attain bodily forms characterized by masculine or feminine disposition according to their respective grades of eligibility. The Vatsalya class of worshippers get bodily forms, begetting fatherly and motherly sentiments. The amorous lovers of Krishna attain the pure forms of gopis, spiritual milkmaids of Vraj. So we have a little over 15 minutes. There were other points that I was thinking of, but I just thought to open it up for any comments, questions, corrections. Yes, Nagari, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for an illuminating class. So with regards to a favorable attitude towards Krishna, basically what's implied is that having a favorable attitude towards Krishna is more illuminating. So there's more knowledge, and therefore you won't accuse the Lord of being partial, of being childish, and also of the possibility that you could sever his head, like Hiranyakashipu is doing. But we see that worshippers, or at least worshippers trying to approach the bhava and even the prema stage, they can actually make a mistake and make some accusations of the Lord. So, for example, like a very rudimentary one is, oh, the Lord isn't answering my prayers. Here I'm suffering. Um, you know, yeah, I've been serving the Lord for so long. So we even see in our own society as well, these kinds of disqualifications could actually, or aspersions could actually even be cast on Krishna, that Krishna isn't completely Vatsala, a Bhakta Vatsala. He's Bhakta Vatsala in hindsight. Uh, when you are looking in the past, like, okay, the Lord put me through this, but he put the Pandavas through that. But we appreciate because we know that's the end. It's a happy ending. Um, so as practitioners, how do we, and for a devotee who's not on the bhava and even on the prema stage, where one fully identifies as a servant of the Lord, one fully knows their form in relation to the Lord before all this magic takes place. How do we not cast these disqualifications to Krishna as we are struggling towards trying to serve him?
Oh, Hare Krishna. Yes, that's a great question, and I'm sure there are other devotees on here who could probably answer way better than I could. But according to the small realization I've had in association with great devotees, the topmost standard of understanding to reflect on is that famous verse from Bhagavatam that says that, one who is able to tolerate all the difficulties, seeing them, that one actually, can attain the spiritual world, all the while tolerating these difficulties, still worshiping and serving the Lord. Such a devotee, they go to the spiritual world. So that's the platform to aspire for, is to still serve the Lord, whether in the good times and the bad times, we still serve the Lord. On level before that, of course, we have the scriptural injunctions, as we're hearing here in the purport, that if we're not yet on that platform of natural affection for the Lord, then we have to act on the platform of rules and regulations. And so that's why we're prescribed to do a certain amount of devotional service, namely hearing and chanting, as the primary. So the japa is very, very important. Rising early is very important. Praying, doing the prayers in the morning is very important. Offering prayers to Tulsi Devi is very important. So everything Srila Prabhupada gave us, if we follow it strictly and we do it sincerely, it works. And these thoughts, when they come, these feelings, when they come that are quite inimical toward the Lord, we're able to actually transform them by the grace of the spiritual master and the devotees and the Supreme Lord. We're able to transcend them by they become transformed. So one of my personal experiences is, I was chanting japa, and it's not like I'm trying to think of things while I'm chanting japa. But I'm when I'm chanting, I'm just trying to follow, to hear the Maha Mantra, and in the mood of calling out for service and for loving service. So I'm really trying to bring my mind just to be present with the holy name and hear the holy name, and not worry about anything else. And then it just, it just dawned on me that, wow, that this whole time, like, Krishna is so loving, he's so kind, but for some reason I was holding this resentment towards Krishna, not knowing that the whole time he was trying to help me, just like a parent, loving mother or father or loving grandparent. These days some children are raised by their grandparents. They may act and do things in a way that the child is completely feels, can understand why. Then later on, as a child matures, they generally appreciate the affection, although it's sometimes a hard, tough love. But that love has to be there, otherwise the child gets spoiled. So like that, I was feeling that, I was able to see that I was holding on to this bit of resentment towards the Lord. And the more and more I chant, the more I realize that these subtle things that are being held on within is just a misunderstanding of Krishna's affection and my own stupidity for things in this world. So like that, as a part, the natural byproduct of engaging in devotional service is, the knowledge comes, and then also the detachment comes. They're like natural byproducts. So if we just try to, again, re-establish ourselves every day as a new day, to try to really stick to the process that we're given, the medicine works. Those things will go away.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Prabhu. Anybody else have any comments, corrections, additions? We have 10 minutes here. Anybody else like to chime in? Otherwise, I can continue here for a few more minutes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hi, Krishna. Good morning, Kumari Gopi. Thank you so much for your class. I really appreciated it, and all of the Sastra that you read. I really liked the reading that you just did before you finished. I appreciated the part about how fear and anger and lust showed up and personified in certain demonic personalities. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how those very same things separate us from Krishna, from one another, and what we can do when those things rear their ugly, separating little heads in our hearts and in our minds. What we can do as devotees. Um, Certainly we can chant, but what else can we do in action to counter these things and advance more toward the Lord, not away?
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. I'm sure through your own life experiences, you have a lot of practical examples of how you've dealt with them. Um, so one thing that comes to mind, I've heard from different devotees, but it's specifically from Vaisheshika Prabhu, and I always joke about it with my husband. What does it say? This these unwanted qualities, we just neglect them. We neglect them, you know. It's like tender, loving neglect. You just don't feed into them. And he gave the example like you picture them like a little creature, like you know, and put them under your armpit, and then you walk to the forest, and then you just kind of throw it there and walk away. So I always like that example that sometimes you have this like, horrible little bouncy monster, and you just throw it. So like that, devotees, and then there's the Native American example that I hear my Gurudev, and Sohanish Swami, he gives a lot about the good dog and the bad dog, and the Native Americans give this example. Like, I don't know if it's to like wild dogs or wolves, but the idea is whichever dog you feed becomes stronger. So like that inside, we have these two sides barking. So we want to feed the good dog and it'll become stronger. Um, and of course, there's different extents of that. I'm not addressing like some serious, traumatic anger conditions, or, there's like serious cases where people do need some guidance and counseling to process these emotions that, come from childhood traumas and things like that. So those things obviously they need to be somewhat assisted if it's that severe, which in this modern day and age, at least a lot of younger generations, unfortunately, they have a lot of issues due to bad diet and no family unit, intoxication, and massive amounts of sinful activities from sense gratification. So combination, it's still, the holy name is all powerful, and there's still a lot of benefit. But to access that, there's remedial methods of how to slowly regain one's health physically, mentally, like that. Help one in their progress to spiritual life. But in general, like for one who is situated in their practice and still dealing with these issues, neglect is a great option. So I hope that helps. Hey, I just wanted to
Thank
say,
you. Ed.
oh yeah,
You
you're welcome.
did very much.
Well, I just want to say that this weekend is Radhastami, and so yeah, look out for the updates on the schedule on that. This is a perfect opportunity to really get the mercy of Radharani, in the mood of following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, in the mood of Radharani. And so in this mood of serving Lord Chaitanya, we can have a better understanding of the mood of Radharani and get the mercy, because a lot of, at least for myself, I'm not yet on that natural affection for Krishna platform yet. And so really to get the mercy of Krishna, we need to get it from someone who has it. And so the devotees in the line of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we serve their lotus feet, we serve their desire, like that. And what's the most pleasing to them is that we try to serve Krishna, love Krishna, and share it with others. And I'll stop there. Any last comments or questions? Otherwise, we will end. Okay, going once, going twice. Jai Prabhus, thank you for your association online. Hare Krishna Ganta, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.